G-Force 1330 was featured recently in the Chicago rock radio documentary film Static, also referred to as a rockumentary. Static covers various years from the mid-1970s up until today. The film features popular Chicago rock radio disc jockeys such as Patrick Capone, as well as G-Force alumni such as Scott Davidson and Rockin Ron Simon. This scene covers the rise and fall of G-Force and how it rose from the ashes of Z-Rock in Chicago radio history. Narrated by former Z-Rock jock Jason Lee Tipton.
Z-Rockers were caught off guard by the abrupt format change and not quiet about it. Most vocal were Wild Bill and the G-Man, who started a rally to save the station, making headline news over Z-Rock's demise.
I need some metal.
Crazy Train?
I'm not really sure yet, but I need some metal, man. I don't think I can read this without metal.
Very precious metal.
These victims, there is no other word to describe them, are among, this is Eric Zorin writing this, so he's got some personality in there, are among those who have signed petitions and written hundreds of letters decrying the fate of their beloved WZRC FM 106.7. All right. Guy Giuliano,
The
G-Man, who now is like into leather and stuff. Guy Giuliano has been collecting all the signatures and letters and wants to use them to persuade the owners of the radio station now WTVW. He was collecting signatures, the G-Man, to persuade the owners of the radio station now WTVW, The Wave, either to change back to heavy metal. People think only teens listen to Z-Rock, said Giuliano, Friday after his superiors learned he had been agitating on behalf of the old format. But we've heard from thousands of people in their 20s and 30s.
I think we got the bulk of it anyway. Just more quotes.
Yeah.
When they couldn't make any money.
But he works in radio, so he should know
things to
It's
him.
not fair, but in the Chicago area where we measure our radio audiences in the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, on that scale, Z-Rock didn't measure up. It attracted just over 1% of the average radio audience, and half of its listeners were teenagers, a group many advertisers don't particularly care to reach.
Back in the Windy City, G-Man's campaign to bring Z-Rock back to Chicago didn't quite pan out. However, with a huge advertiser and listener support base behind him, the hunt for another station began. Rumors that Lee Abrams was in talks with local AM stations ironically paved the way for G-Ster to land a new radio home, this time without Z-Rock. In early 1989, it was announced that AM 1330 would be the dial position for Chicagoland's new hard rock and heavy metal radio station, G-Force 1330. The G-Ster enlisted veteran talent to join G-Force's G-Team, such as ex-Z-Rockers, Wild Bill Scott, Booby Bondage, Rockin Ron Simon, as well as newcomers to the format, such as suburban rock jock Jammin' Janet and local musician Scott Davidson.
Where's the water, man? I'm right here. It's like I never left, and say hello to Chicago once again. Yeah, I'm just checking into the G-Force studios here to make sure all the wimp is cleaned out. It's after 6 o'clock at night, and we're looking around for some Cat Stevens records. Looks like I found one. I never did understand these record lyrics, and I think I'm going to have to nuke this one for sure. Yeah, here goes.
Calling?
All right. You don't know how good that makes me feel. All right. Kickstart that hog and take off for the rock and roll streets of the Windy City once again. Here we go.
That's right this way, gang, for the greatest show in town.
The Wild Man! All right.
Now, if you people don't show me anything today, if I keep getting this slow deal,
Right.
we're going to get together tonight and bust that sound barrier. Do you hear me? Yeah!
All right, come on along, Chicago. Let's start up here right where we were when we were so rudely interrupted, if you know what I mean. Metallica and 2 full hours right here on G-Force 1330. Come on and hit them lights.
Oh my God. Bill was definitely an influence on, I think, everyone around him. The thing that I remember the most about Wild Bill is that he was funny without even trying to be funny. And that was his charm, for sure. G-Star, you got a fiber? And what was it? Let me see if I can do this right now. Fly low, beat the radar, and may the wind at your back not be your own.
Thank you, John. Up next, Bob Surratt on the G-Force, which is not a new ride at your local amusement park exactly.
In sports,
emailed the G-Star, the program director of the station, and say how great it was. And it turns out that he spearheaded the whole heavy metal thing here in Chicago, and so that was, to this day, the very best radio station I've ever heard in my life.
Still ahead here on the Channel 5 News, why the Empire State Building was flooded in red, white, and blue light tonight.
A college coach delivers a dramatic revelation about his double life.
And Bob Surratt tonight on Suburbia's Heavy Metal Wars. Heavy metal music has been on trial lately in the courts of justice and in the court of public opinion. But Channel 5's Bob Surratt says that the booming popularity has turned around the fortunes of a couple of struggling local radio stations.
And has turned into a small-scale version of the old WLS-WCFL radio wars, fought with a little less wattage.
G-Force 1330, loud and proud with Leatherface, Las Rocket. Oh yeah, baby.
Last year, AM 1330 did this 2 hours a day and was losing money. Now they're no longer in the red, thanks to Bangin' Head. Why aren't the big guys downtown doing this?
Well, it's all for upper demos. They want to hit the 25-plus guy on the street that works at the steel mill, and they don't think that kids can sell. But these days, these kids have a lot of money, and they're occupied with buying all the time.
Nasty story of my life. G-Star pounding the Man of War on top right now.
Las Rocket. Oh,
over at G-Force, they wear their metal label proudly, claiming no competition.
Within 5 years, you're going to see stations like WCKG playing AC/DC and Metallica and calling it classic rock.
It's finally happened. Black Sabbath is an oldies group now. These stations can get between $50 and $100 for 1-minute commercials, but as that 12 to 24-year-old audience ages and starts spending more, rates, revenue, and heavy metal will be on the rise. Ron and Carol, that's it from Wayne's World tonight.
You get the feeling things are just kind of flying by you?
Yes,
you're
moving
not quite
very quickly.
Yeah.
Give G-Star a lot of kudos for finding that outlet and, running with it while we still could.
Yep, the G-Star definitely spearheaded a movement here in Chicago.
The signal was not the greatest, but people, they went for it because it's bands that you don't normally get to hear. So you always say that AM is like a bastard child, but in this case it worked. It worked very well.
For an AM station broadcasting on 5,000 watts, G-Force 1330's playlist was the only commercial station in the region playing artists on the radio such as Motorhead, Metallica, Anthrax, and Megadeth, as well as breaking new artists nationally such as Trouble and Pantera, toe-to-toe with popular rock outlets across America. Unlike the corporate FM rock stations in town, G-Force had a cult following, pouring thousands of bumper stickers and t-shirts onto the streets, hosting up to 3 concerts per week with nonstop promotions, serving their loyal niche audience.
When G-Force came out in Chicago, there was a lot of excitement because we were playing heavy stuff that no one else was playing. BVAX played some of this stuff, but they wasn't the heaviest G-Force. G-Force was definitely heavier, had a great response, and the G-Star and I, we were going to every party we could go to. We go to the woods to hand out flyers for months at a time, pushing it. So great response when we first started G-Force 1330.
Like the previous hard rock stations in Chicago, G-Force was very successful with its core audience, lasting much longer than predicted by critics. The station's success was easily seen by local sales of hard rock albums and concerts it promoted that the other radio outlets ignored.
In Chicago, they don't think there's a market for it, but you go to a concert, you watch how these bands sell out shows, but when you hear Motorhead on the radio, frickin' never, but they sold out consistently.
Meanwhile, the music industry was shifting quickly in the early 90s as hair bands and thrash metal groups were slipping out of favor, and the new grunge rock movement exploded across the country. Even Z-Rock shifted to a more alternative direction, leaving the headbanger image behind, as the new Seattle sound invaded the airwaves of rock radio in America. Meanwhile, the G-Ster was looking west for other opportunities in broadcasting, while G-Force was still hot on the radar. His exit would eventually lead to the end of the format in Chicago, and after close to 2 years of cranking loud and proud, G-Force 1330 would be history by early 1991.
And they don't recognize the album sales like a band like Slayer, who consistently, and Disturbed, who are local, consistently top-selling records with G-Force, which was here out of Chicago, and Z-Rock.
We all realized there was a part of the market that was starving, you know, and there still is people that want to hear heavier rock.
It was awesome to have a 24-hour hard rock metal station in Chicagoland. I would go to a gas station and get gas. I had the radio on Z-Rock 106.7, and then I'd look over to the person getting gas next to me, and they had the same song on, Motorhead song on top. So it was very depressing to have Z-Rock gone off the air in Chicago.
Very good memories of the G-Force and Z-Rock, and